What is going on, guys? It is week 17 of fantasy hockey, and today we have a lot to talk about. We have that big trade, Martin Necas, Mikko Rantanen, and obviously we're going to be going over the teams with the best and worst schedules, the streamers to help you maximize your games, some power play updates, and some new must-add players. Let's start off with the big news, the Necas-Rantanen trade. Now, this definitely has implications for fantasy. There's no doubt about it. This is obviously a bad thing for Mikko Rantanen. I'm not saying Mikko Rantanen is going to have a huge drop-off in production, but there's no doubt that the Colorado system versus the Carolina system is very different. Only time will tell how this will affect Rantanen moving forward, but if I have him on my fantasy team, I'm not too excited about this move. On the other hand, with Necas, this is amazing news for his fantasy value. Necas has already had a fantastic season with the majority of the year playing on an even strength line with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So he is going from Jesperi Kotkaniemi as a center to Nathan MacKinnon. This is massive for his value, obviously. You're going to see a big bump in 5v5 production, in my opinion. And the Avalanche power play is obviously very good as well, and it should end up being better than the Carolina power play when we look at the end of the year. So, yeah, I mean, this is huge for Necas' value. If you're in a more shallow league and he is available, maybe he was dropped, I highly suggest you pick him up. Didn't have the best game when they played the Bruins yesterday. He was a -3, but he played a career high 25 minutes in this game. And what we're going to see is not only a bump in 5v5 production, in my opinion, playing with Nathan MacKinnon, and obviously on a very good power play, but we're also going to see a huge ice time bump. In some games on Carolina, he would get like 16 minutes a night, 17 minutes a night. But with the Avalanche, Bednar runs their players a lot of heavy minutes. So you could see a lot of games where Necas is getting like 20, 21 minutes, even 22 minutes a night. So yeah, this is big for his value, and I think he's going to be really good for the rest of the year. Just before we talk about the most off nights, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button below. Something like 60% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed. Would really appreciate it if you do that if you are not subscribed yet. And also make sure you follow my X/Twitter at FIREDUP Fantasy, and also join the Discord community. If you guys are on Discord, we have a community in there. We give fantasy hockey advice. We're chatting about hockey, and you can find that in my description. All right, now let's talk about the most off nights for this week, and let's take a look at the schedule here. We have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday being undoubtedly off nights. You're going to have open roster spots on these nights, but then you kind of have a gray area when it comes to Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. 8 games on Tuesday, 9 games on Saturday, 9 games on Sunday. Depends if you have a utility spot, and also depends on the makeup of your roster. You're just going to have to check if you have open roster spots on these days, and that will change how you stream. Now, Thursday, you have 10 games, so there's a slight chance you could have an open roster spot on Thursday, but it's unlikely. Make sure you check. And just looking at the teams here with the most off nights, considering the schedule, the number 1 team is the Vancouver Canucks. They play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday definitely be an off night. Sunday could be an off night, and that means players on the Canucks are going to be great for maximizing your games. There's also more teams that you could stream from, specifically the Flyers and the Kings. 4 games and 2 guaranteed off nights, potentially 3 off nights. The Kraken have 4 games and 1 guaranteed off night, potentially 3 off nights. And then you have some more teams as well here that have 3 games and guaranteed 2 off nights. Those teams being the Devils, the Predators, the Blues, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then some other teams that could have some off nights as well in the Sabres, the Avalanche, and the Stars. You also have the Red Wings. They have 4 games and at least 1 off night, but they could have 3 off nights as well, depending on your roster. And then there's some other teams that have 4 games as well with potential off nights in the Calgary Flames and the Islanders. On the flip side, the teams with the least amount of games for this week include the Senators having 2 games and 0 off nights, and also the Sharks and the Leafs having 2 games and guaranteed 1 off night. Picking up players from these teams is not going to be ideal for maximizing your games. And if you have a lot of players on these teams already, that's just bad luck. Moving on, let's talk about the easiest schedule for skaters. These are teams with an above 2.95 opponent goals against average, and they include the Nashville Predators, the Devils, the Utah Hockey Club, the Sharks, the Penguins, and the Stars. On the other hand, the hardest schedule for skaters are going to come from these teams with a below 2.65 opponent goals against average. These teams are the Senators, the Flyers, the Capitals, the Blue Jackets, the Canadiens, and the Blackhawks. Now to focus on goalies here, these are the teams with the easiest schedule for goalies. These teams have a below 2.85 opponent goals per game, And we have the Panthers, the Lightning, the Penguins, the Kraken, the Avalanche, the Sabres, the Hurricanes, and the Canucks. And we have the hardest schedule for goalies here. These are teams with an above 3.15 opponent goals per game. And these teams are the Blackhawks, the Islanders, the Kings, the Senators, the Bruins, the Stars, and the Rangers. There's a chance that the goalies on these teams underperform this week. Okay, moving on, let's talk about some streamers for this week. Like I said, the Canucks have the best schedule for maximizing your games with the off nights that they have. And obviously the guys that could be available in a more shallow league that you're going to want to pick up to get those off nights include players like JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser. But if you're in like a 10-team league or more, there's going to be some other options that are solid too. The number one option I would say is probably Connor Garland. No, he's not an offensive beast, but he is power play 1. He gets really good ice time, and he's only 32% rostered, so there's a chance that he's widely available in a lot of leagues. You also have Jake DeBrusk, who's not power play 1, but he does get decent ice time in the top 6, puts up good peripherals. And then you have some other players like Philip Hronek, who can put up some points. Kiefer Sherwood, if you're in a league that heavily values hits. He's a guy that's going to be huge for this week in terms of the off nights. And there's some more deeper league options if you're in a league with like 14 teams or more that I haven't included on this list, but you can look it up. Now, in terms of the other streamers, you're going to want to check if you have open roster spots on those gray area nights, those nights being Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. But these are going to be players from the Flyers, the Kings, the Kraken. There's a couple of more that I'll get into here. But as you can see, I've listed off some players that could be available. And yeah, they could be good for maximizing your games. Other than those teams, you also have the Red Wings, the Flames, and the Islanders. All these teams having 4 games and potentially having some off nights. So if you do have open roster spots on those days, they could be good to stream as well. Moving on, let's talk about some new power play updates. With the Bruins, McAvoy is still injured, and that means Low Rye has been power play 1. McAvoy should be back soon, I believe, but in the short term, this definitely helps Low Rye. With the Carolina Hurricanes, with the trade, obviously Mikko Rantanen is power play 1. With the Avalanche, Necas is power play 1. One thing to note with the Avalanche, though, is that Nichushkin had a setback. Another setback, guys. He is currently out week to week still. So that means Arturi Lehkonen and Jonathan Drouin are likely going to be power play 1 for the foreseeable future. Now with the Blue Jackets, this is really big. Fantilli has been power play 1 for the last week and a half already. But Sean Monahan has had a setback, and he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. So this means Fantilli is going to stay on power play 1 until Monahan returns, which is close to the end of the fantasy hockey season. So yeah, big news for Fantilli. I'll talk about that in a little bit. With the Stars, Rupe Hintz is back. He's back on power play 1. With the Red Wings, Tarasenko is power play 1 with Kane out day to day. With the Florida Panthers, Ekblad is back. He's healthy. And in the first game back, he was on power play 1. So definitely think he could be worth a look. With the Kings, Jordan Spence has been power play 1 over Brant Clark. Not sure why. I mean, I get it. The Kings power play hasn't been the best. Not sure about the long-term potential of Spence with Doughty coming back, but something to note. With the Minnesota Wild, Jared Spurgeon, he's back, he's healthy, and he was immediately put on power play 1. So this is definitely an underrated option. I'll talk about that in a little bit. With the Islanders, Tony DeAngelo has been signed, and in the first game, he was immediately power play 1 and played 25 minutes. So yeah, good news for his value. With the Ottawa Senators, Josh Norris is out. He is skating in a non-contact jersey, so chance he's back in a week or two. And with him being out, we have Claude Giroux on power play 1. Then with the Penguins, Russ is injured. He's day to day. And I believe Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang were power play 1 last night, but I'm not too sure. I will keep you guys updated. And then with the Sharks, Jake Wallman, he's back on power play 1. William Eklund is still power play 1, so that's good for him. And then with the Blues, the power play is still split into a 1A, 1B power play, which is not ideal for those top players. Moving on to the second page of power play updates, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are still splitting their power plays. I believe it's Hagel, Paul, Cirelli, and Hedman power play 1 with Kucherov because he's playing both units. And then power play 2 is Point, Gensel, Radish, and Chaffee. Could be the other way around, but yeah, they're still doing this. We'll see how long it lasts. With the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tavares is still injured. Nyes got injured, but he's deemed day-to-day for now. But what they're doing is they have Bobby McMahon and Max Domi on power play 1. So, yeah, pretty crazy that Morgan Rielly can't even crack power play 1 with these injuries. But McMahon's definitely a must-add player. Domi, probably not, but something to keep an eye out for. With the Utah Hockey Club, Sergachev is still out. It's still day-to-day, I believe. So with this injury, Michael Kesselring is power play 1, playing pretty well. Could be worth a look in the short term. And then Josh Stone is still power play 1 as well. 2 more teams here. The Vancouver Canucks. Connor Garland is power play 1 with everyone healthy. Not the best for Jake DeBrusk. That's how the cookie crumbles. And then Pavel Dorofeev is still power play 1 on the Vegas Golden Knights over Victor Olofsson. Very good news for him. Moving on, let's talk about some new forward adds. The first player is Martin Necas of the Colorado Avalanche. Listen, I understand some of you are going to comment like, in what league is Martin Necas available? But there are some people that watch that are in 4-team leagues or 6-team leagues. So I do think there's a chance he's available, and I do think he's worth a look considering this move is a positive thing for his fantasy value. Then we have Thomas Hertl of the Vegas Golden Knights. He's been playing really good lately, really good peripherals, seeing more ice time as well. The power play production has been good. He's obviously going to cool down, but I do think he's worth a look at his roster percentage. Could be available. You also have Arturi Lehkonen. Lehkonen is going to be power play 1 longer with Nichushkin having that setback. So, yeah, this is really good news for Lehkonen. In my opinion, if Nichushkin was back and healthy, he would be the guy bumping Lehkonen off. So, yeah, this is good for him, and I would definitely hold on to Lehkonen for the foreseeable future. Next, we have Adam Fantilli, probably my favorite must-add player for this week, given his roster percentage. And the reason for this is, like I said earlier, Sean Monahan had a setback. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks now, and that means Fantilli is going to be line 1, power play 1 for the next 2 months. So absolutely add him if you can. Obviously, if you're in a league with like 8 teams or less, not telling you to scramble to pick a Fantilli, but in any leagues with 10 teams or more, he needs to be rostered. Next, we have Troy Terry. He's playing really good this year. His roster percentage is super low in Yahoo, so I think he's worth a look considering, you know, him being under rostered and underrated. Then you have Nick Schmaltz, who's line 1, power play 1. He's producing as of late. It's probably going to cool down after this, but I do think he is under rostered and underrated considering the type of production that he can bring. But a warning here is that his peripherals are very bad, so something to consider. Next, you have Bobby McMahon of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is line 1, power play 1 right now. Elite deployment on a great team. He loves to shoot the puck, and the ice time has been really good with some of these injuries. So absolutely a must-add player. Next, you have Kent Johnson. Now, Johnson's a guy that doesn't put up the best peripherals. He's been inconsistent, but as of late, he is playing better and producing. The deployment is there. Line 1, power play 1. Definitely worth a look. You also have Pavel Dorofeev, who is in the top 6 still and still on power play 1, getting really good ice time. You know, he's a goal scorer. He likes to shoot the puck. Definitely think he's a must-add player. Lastly, here we have Uri Slafkovsky. Now, I understand Slafkovsky's had a disappointing season, but we are seeing some good signs as of late. He's producing. He's still getting good deployment, line 1, power play 1, and he puts up really good hits. So if your league counts hits, he's definitely worth a look. Now, in terms of some players that could be options in deeper leagues like 14-plus teams or more, Morgan Geekie is playing really well. He's line 1 with Pasternak. You also have Yuri Kulik, who is currently line 1 with Tage. Don't know if that's going to last because they had Ryan McLeod on there, and now it's Kulik, but could be worth a look in a very deep league. You also have Frank Nazar, who's line 1 with Bedard, and Jacob Peltier, who is also line 1 with Huberdeau and Kadri. I also want to talk about 2 short-term options here. You have Claude Giroux, who's power play 1 with Josh Norris out, and Vladimir Tarasenko, who's power play 1 with Patrick Kane out. Lastly, here we have Boone Jenner. I talked about him last week. He is returning soon. So this is an IR stash for a peripheral heavy league. I also wanted to give a shout out to some players who I think have too low of a roster percentage on Yahoo. Kirill Marchenko is 84% rostered, but it should be like 100% rostered at this point. I'm sure it's just dead leagues, but I thought I would include him. You also have Rickard Rakell, who's 69% rostered. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me considering the season that he's having. You also have Joel Eriksson-Ek, who I'm expecting to bounce back. Really good peripherals, really good playoff schedule. I'll make a video soon, guys. Trust me. You also have Bo Horvat, who's playing really good lately. 68% roster is pretty low. Matt Zuccarello, 62% rostered. Line 1, power play 1 guy. Great playoff schedule as well. You have Patrick Laine, who's the #1 shot on that power play, only 62% rostered. You also have Brock Nelson, who wasn't power play 1 for the majority of the season until like 2 weeks ago. He's 53% rostered. He's getting elite ice time and deployment. Definitely worth a look. And then we also have Jack Quinn. Now, I understand the production hasn't been there, but his ice time has been very good. He's getting significant power play time. He's only 3% rostered. Someone to keep an eye out for. And also Josh Doan, who's line 2, power play 1, only 2% rostered. Next up, let's talk about some defenseman ads. You have Jake Wallman. I understand he got taken off power play 1 for a couple of games here, but that has happened periodically throughout the season. Not worried about it. He was power play 1 last game. I just think his roster percentage is too low for what he's bringing to the table in terms of production and peripherals. We also have Aaron Ekblad, who is healthy, back on power play 1 last game, put up a power play assist, decent peripherals, good ice time, certainly worth a look. You have Seth Jones, who's good in leagues without plus minus, but the production has been better as of late, really good peripherals. You also have Drew Doughty, who's going to be back from his injury soon. He's probably going to be put on power play 1, in the first game back or very soon after his first game. So definitely worth a look. You have Jared Spurgeon, who has a very low roster percentage, good ice time, power play 1 immediately in his first game back, and decent peripherals as well. Next, we have Tony DeAngelo, immediately power play 1 in his first game since getting signed, 25 minutes last game. And yeah, he's going to put up power play points. Not the best peripherals, but definitely worth a look considering his low roster percentage. If you need a defenseman, take a look. Then 2 more defensemen here. Darren Radish. I expect his power play to probably change soon, but you never know. But what they're doing, like I said earlier, is they're running a 1A, 1B power play, and this benefits Radish, right? Like, he's getting more power play time than he ever would if they were running a top-heavy unit, and he's producing and putting up good peripherals, so absolutely worth a look. Then we have Jake Middleton, not a power play 1 guy, not the most offensively gifted player, but he's getting the lead ice time and putting up really good shots, hits, and blocks, so he's going to fill those cats. Then lastly, we have 3 short-term players here. Michael Kesserling, he's power play 1 with Sergachev still out, decent peripherals. Jordan Spence, who's currently power play 1 over Clark now, but with Doughty returning, I doubt this lasts very long. And then you have Mason Lohrei, who is power play 1 with McAvoy, still injured. Lastly, let's talk about some new goalie ads here. We have Jake Allen of the New Jersey Devils. Markstrom is out 4 to 6 weeks, so Allen is going to get a lot of volume on a very good team. So that is a no-brainer. You have Destin Wolf, who's playing really good lately and finally getting the volume that he deserves. Fantastic numbers on the year for the rookie. You have Elvis Merzlikins of the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets are playing decent this year. They could even make it to the playoffs potentially. And yeah, Elvis is playing great. He's getting the volume. Definitely worth a look. Pretty low roster percentage. You have Joey Decord, who's playing decent, getting volume because he's much better than Grubauer. Just compare the numbers, guys. You also have Cam Talbot. Now, Talbot, I wouldn't hold long term. Like, I do have some concerns with him because line is there. And historically this year, they haven't ran with a goalie in terms of volume. But maybe with Talbot's recent performance, he could get some more starts. You also have Alex Nedeljkovic here. Now, I understand Blomqvist got the last start, but with Jari gone in the AHL, there is volume potential with Nedeljkovic if that's what you're looking for. Lastly, we have 2 goalies that I think have too low of a roster percentage. Darcy Kemper would be one of them. This could just be dead leagues as to why his roster percentage is not like 90% plus. But as of now, his roster percentage on Yahoo is something like 79%. And he's having a great year with a lot of volume on a decent team. So yeah, I definitely would take a look if he is still available on the wire. And finally, we have Samuel Ersson. Now, Ersson's not going to be a guy that's going to have the best goals against average and save percentage, but he is a guy that gets a lot of volume on a team that can have some pretty good nights defensively. So yeah, definitely worth a look as well. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.